Hey guys, I'm Katie,
And I'm Ryan.
and you're listening to The List, where we're watching IMDb's top 100 greatest movies of all time, and we're letting you know which ones are bucket list worthy movies. Today, we're talking about Annie Hall by Woody Allen.
Woot.
I think that was sarcastic. All right, so let's dive right into it. We're going to talk about Annie Hall this week. You've seen a Woody Allen movie before, correct?
Part of one, yes.
Part of.
Part of some, yes.
So, do
But
you remember what they
this
were?
is the first one I've ever finished.
Okay. Do you remember what they were?
No,
No.
no, I
Okay.
do not.
I actually saw one recommended to me on Prime the other day about sisters, the something sisters or something like that. And I was gonna watch it. Now that we've watched Annie Hall, um, I don't think I'll watch. Maybe.
Spoiler. Spoiler.
Okay, well, let's stop spoiling it and let me give you guys a synopsis of Annie Hall if you've never heard of it before. I actually saw a couple of synopses that said they called it a neurotic romance.
It's definitely neurotic.
Yeah. So the synopsis I went with says comedian Alvy Singer examines the rise and fall of his relationship with struggling nightclub singer Annie Hall. Speaking directly to the audience in front of a bare background, Singer reflects briefly on his childhood and his early adult years before settling in to tell the story of how he and Annie met, fell in love, and struggled with the obstacles of modern romance, mixing surreal fantasy sequences with small moments of emotional drama.
That's a pretty good synopsis, I
It
guess.
is, yeah. A lot of things I've read said that this kind of marked a moment in romantic comedy and that there have been romantic comedies before Annie Hall and after. I actually don't know that I would call it a romantic comedy, would you?
There's nothing else that it fits into. So, yeah, I think it is a romantic comedy, but it's not romance in the typical sense that you see it in
Yeah.
most
I
movies
mean, there's
nowadays.
romance in it and there's comedy in it, but I don't know. There's a lot to talk about with this movie. I guess we'll start with what awards it won and some facts about it before we dive into our feelings about it, even though I think we've already kind of hinted towards it. This movie won 4 Academy Awards: Best Actress in a Leading Role for Diane Keaton, Best
Okay, I can
Director.
I can get
I
behind
can
that.
I can too. She did a very good job. Gorgeous in this film, by the way. She's got a very distinct look, and I feel like she didn't look like herself.
She's
Not that she's not gorgeous
she's
otherwise.
super young in this
Yeah,
movie.
she's always gorgeous to me, but yeah, she looked very different in this movie, just young, I think. Best director for Woody Allen, best picture, best writing and screenplay for Woody Allen and Marshall Brickman, who co-wrote the movie. They won all of those, and then they were nominated for best actor in a leading role for Woody Allen, which he did not win.
What were the other I'm really curious. What were the other movies that this
All
movie was
right.
up
Well,
against that
let's
year?
see if we can find out. Okay, so it looks like The Goodbye Girl, A Special Day, Saturday Night Fever, Julia, The Turning Point, Star Wars. How did it beat Star Wars?
Well, I mean, Star Wars is not
Definitely, if it's the first Star
cinematography wise.
Wars.
Star Wars blew
Yeah.
people's minds.
The Turning
Everything
Point.
else, I mean, it's not. It's fun story, but it's not like Academy
Close,
Award worthy for that. I don't think anyway.
I
But
think,
still,
but
I think it was a billion times better than this movie.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind was also this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Also a better film, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Saturday
The
Night
others,
Fever, better film, in my
the
opinion.
other
And I'm,
side
I'm
of
not a big fan of that
midnight.
either. I haven't seen
It's
that
on
one.
here. I haven't seen many of these movies. Here's $10. Go see a Star Wars, Michael. Go see a Star War. So it looks like there were some good movies that year. Some that even I recognize and some that we've watched for this podcast. But they kind of swept the Academy Awards with Annie Hall. And I think it might be kind of a case of doing something new that kind of breaks out in film. And I don't think that doing something new that impresses other filmmakers always translates into an enjoyable, good movie.
Did not translate for me.
Yeah.
But I could see how other people in the industry would appreciate this movie.
It's an industry movie to me, but whatever. I will also tell you that Woody Allen is infamous for never going to the Oscars. He went one time right after September 11th, but was not presenting and was not accepting an award. He was basically asking filmmakers to please continue making films in New York, even though there had been a terrorist attack. But he's like infamous for not coming to accept awards. And even like what he said was so irritating to me. He was like, the reason he doesn't go is because he just doesn't believe in awards and thinks that if you acknowledge getting an award, you have to acknowledge not receiving an award. And it was just so pretentious.
He's anti-establishment.
It was so pretentious, though. But it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. It was very pretentious. I don't think I like him, but whatever. It's
a popularity contest.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I bet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just assuming. And so maybe he's like, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Popular. I'm not popular. I don't really care about being popular.
Yeah.
He just wants to make movies and do his thing. And that's
maybe
cool.
It was just
I actually respect that.
Well, you can respect it. It irritated me. So.
Okay. Well.
So I have a couple of facts that I've read about this movie. There's a really memorable scene in the movie where Woody Allen sneezes into a like cocaine canister. What do you call a cocaine canister? What do you say?
A snuff box?
A snuff box? Okay, sure. And it goes everywhere. I guess that it actually happened in rehearsals and was an accident, but it tested so well with audiences that they kept it in. So not intentional.
That was a very funny moment, actually.
It was the only time in this comedy that I laughed out loud.
Fun fact, if you look at your hand and you reach out your thumb, there's a little groove right at the wrist. This is called the anatomical snuff box because supposedly people used to put cocaine there and sniff it.
I like to catch Flamin' Hot Cheeto crumbs there.
Oh, wow.
That's what I like to do with that.
That's special.
Just lick them straight off. Yeah. So same like
anatomical Flamin' Hot Cheeto box.
Cheeto box. Men have beards to like save their savory things in and like sneak a little bite of later. I have my anatomical Flamin' Hot Cheeto box. So there you have that. Okay, so there's this really iconic moment where Diane Keaton comes out in this like mishmash of clothes that kind of somehow ends up working. She's in a vest and a collared shirt and a tie and like jorts, or they're not jorts, but they're like culottes, I think people used to call them. They're long shorts.
She looks like a 1930s newsboy / professor. She should be wearing my hat, actually.
It would go well, I feel like. But I like your hat, so so I guess that Diane Keaton got to pick her clothes, and she's the one who came up with that outfit and came out in it, and they were like, no, let her do it. Unless I hate something, I'm gonna let her wear whatever she wants to wear. And then it was iconic and like swept the nation. People were mimicking the look for years. And Woody Allen actually had a knack for like finding people like Diane Keaton, up and comers, and casting them and kind of thrusting them into stardom. Yeah, so those are all my fun facts about Annie Hall. And now we're going to get into what we thought about the movie. So what did you think about the story?
I think he starts off the beginning with this monologue where he's breaking the fourth wall. And he basically says something to the effect that like, life sucks. You're either like unhappy or miserable.
Yeah.
And be thankful that you're not miserable all the time. At least you could be unhappy. And I think that kind of is the entire philosophy of this movie. Because we just see him going from a relationship where he's unhappy to not being in a relationship where he's miserable. And so he's just picking between the two and never really being happy because that's his, just philosophy on life. I hate that philosophy. I really hate it. And so for me, I think the translation to that into a film and into a relationship just really dragged down the plot of this movie for me, along with a lot of other things. I did not care for it at all. I was bored 99% of the time. The only time I was really interested is when he would actually do these, and I thought these were pretty neat. And this is a little bit of the cinematography aspect that goes along with this, is these little moments where he'd break the fourth wall and be kind of almost like in his head, right, thinking things, but it would play out in front of him in different scenarios as a child, or like you said in this, even that little moment where they're both in the psychiatrist's office, or there's a little part where they're talking to each other and there's like translations of what they're really thinking and saying and what they're actually saying. So those things I thought were really playful and neat little things, but they were the only thing that lifted me out of my boredom, and they were too far in between those moments. uh, I'm gonna give it a really low score. For me, it's like a 1.
Wow. That's rough.
Not interested at all.
That's a rough score.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's rough. That's real rough. Okay. The thing that sucks about this is this kind of story has a lot of potential to me. Talking about you've broken up with somebody, now let's go back and let's analyze everything and figure out where it went wrong is kind of an interesting premise to me. It's a character heavy story, which I love. It's a small story about a piece of someone's life, which I also love. But Woody Allen as Alvy is so unbearable. And the execution of a good idea is done so, I don't want to say poorly, because I don't know that the execution was done poorly or if it was just done in a way that it was impossible for me to enjoy, like if it's just a personal issue. But I despised it. I did not like it at all. We
But
paused
is that you talking about the acting though, or
the
is that the
story.
story?
This is the story for me. This is how I feel about the story. It is not that Woody Allen acted in a way that made me not like him. It is that his character Alvy and the way the story was written and the way the characters were written was so unbearable to sit through for me that I could not stand it. We paused it, remember,
Mm-hmm.
which we try not to do. And it showed the time that we had been watching, and it had been 29 minutes. And I thought, no, time warp. Something we have sat through 3 hours of this movie already. There's no way it's been 29 minutes.
Agreed.
I feel like half my life has been looking at the screen, watching Alvy, listening to him complain. It was, the pacing was miserable. You would think with a non-linear story, you would find moments to be interested and taken in by at least that. At least the bouncing back and forth would like shake things up. And I disagree that even the moments of breaking the third wall were interesting. I hated them. And the reason why I disliked everything so much is that there was this insufferable tone that the movie was written in, where I know people are going to say, I know they're going to say that it was just highbrow and that it was just meant for like with an intellectual lens. But it wasn't highbrow. It was trying so hard to be highbrow that it made it it's not palatable, because it just is it's like a kid trying to play grown up, and he was trying so hard to be intellectual and above mainstream, and it just was throughout the entire tapestry of the script, and it made it so difficult to watch. And in these kind of movies where it's character based and a moment, a snippet of someone's life, you have to like care about the characters.
Yeah,
But
and
I
that's the
didn't.
main problem. I didn't care about the main characters at
Right.
all. I didn't care about their relationship at
Right.
all. I didn't like either one of them
No.
at all.
No.
And there was no there was a tone, and it was flat the entire time. There
So
was
flat.
no ebb and flow of things going on. It was just pure absolute boredom
And
the entire time.
Alvy,
There's no
like,
climax in the movie whatsoever.
and like Woody Allen, it seemed like he wrote Alvy to be like a scathing criticism of people who are very intellectual. Something about the way he wrote it made me feel a distaste for him versus the people he was trying to poke fun at. He loves himself so much and is just trying to create a movie like as a shrine to how clever he is. I did not enjoy it in the slightest.
Okay.
A 3.
What about acting?
I think Diane Keaton was like the saving grace of this movie. She was the shining star of it to me. Her acting was impeccable. She was flighty and young, and I thought the way she subtly, I mean, this may be some of the writing, but the way she subtly went from free and open and wild into kind of, even from the way she dressed, into this mold of this person Alvy thought she should be, and then back to who she was originally in the beginning, and kind of found a bit of a balance. And I loved her. I thought she was incredible acting wise. Woody Allen was fine. I don't know. He was fine. It was interesting to see Jeff Goldblum and Shelley Duvall. I liked seeing them in it, but their performances were not spectacular. It was just like, oh, there they are.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum just said one line on the telephone.
He's everywhere in these
Yeah.
movies we watch. I'm
He's
like, there's
in these
Jeff
movies.
Goldblum again. So I would say acting, I would give it a 7.5, and that is me rounding down. Like, I would give her alone an 8.5, but with everybody else mixed in there, 7.5 overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think the acting was okay. I mean, what made it difficult though is the writing.
Yeah.
It's like two bipolar people just with pressured speech, just saying anything and everything that comes into their head without any filter as fast as they possibly can. It reminds me of that show you love,
Gilmore Girls.
Like
I knew you were going to say that.
A million times worse scenario. Talk even faster, but not even remotely interesting to listen to the nonsense.
When I was thinking about the movie today, I thought about Gilmore Girls too. It has a very similar dialogue, but whereas Gilmore Girls is accessible and enjoyable, Woody Allen is insufferable.
There was no give and take. There was no give and take between it. And that's what kind of makes it interesting. It was just all give, right? And so
nobody was having a discussion, right?
It didn't seem like they were having a discussion at all. It was just them just hearing their own voices.
Who can say the next most clever thing?
Yeah. And so that's what was pretty annoying about the acting. I thought Diane Keaton did a fine job. I thought Woody Allen portrayed this character fine, but
because it was him.
The other little snippets of his other movies, like he's the same character. So I don't really see it. To me, it's, I have to average everybody, so it's going to be a 5. And yeah, I think you're right. Diane Keaton is the saving grace of this movie.
Yeah, and I feel like we have to talk about the dialogue because is this
thing
in this movie?
Is this writing difficult to act to? Absolutely. I feel like this is a difficult role to act to just because of the writing, but it's still not enjoyable to me
Yeah.
and didn't seem like a real conversation that a real people would have. Did
And I
not
think
mimic reality to me.
I think something I'd like to point out here is that Nashville to me had overlapping natural dialogue, but there was give and take. It was real. And I felt like I could sit in a coffee shop and listen to people have the conversation that was happening in Nashville at any point. In
Yes,
Annie
even
Hall,
though the conversations were boring,
yeah,
you could
to
still
you.
see people having everyday boring
In
conversations.
Annie Hall, it's like somebody sat down and thought of how they wish things would have played out in their life, how they it's like when you get into the shower and you have an argument, after an argument happens and you think of like the cleverest stuff you could have said as a comeback, but you're playing both parts. And so you're writing down the next quippiest thing you can think. And it just felt too much. It felt like trying so hard. Let's talk about the cinematography. What were your thoughts?
I thought there were some unique. I actually enjoyed some of the cinematography. There were some unique aspects that he did in this film that you don't see in many other films. Like we already talked about breaking the fourth wall several times to have these little um, inner reflections, these flashbacks, these cut scenes between uh, him and her at the same time, her family, his family, and the contrasting of those two characters and where they came from. You know, those are kind of interesting things. And same thing with the little subtitle translations of what they were really saying and thinking. I thought those things were actually pretty neat. I think they were in character with the film, the tone of the film, and it made it a little playful, right? And so I actually appreciated that, and I thought those were some of the more interesting moments when those things happened rather than watching the main story. So I think the cinematography is actually well done. I'm going to give it. I'll probably give it about 7.7.
I agree with everything that you said. I wasn't impressed by anything in the cinematography. There were a couple of standout moments, like you mentioned, when the two families were next to each other and he was having, like, I don't want to call it a delusion, but he was in one of his moments where he's imagining something that's not happening. And the two families are in different houses, but side by side having a conversation. The therapy scene, the scene where they're in the car in the beginning and she's driving like a maniac
Mm-hmm.
because she's like a manic pixie dream girl in the beginning, was kind of interesting, but otherwise nothing super impressive. And I actually think I'd give it a 6. It just wasn't that great to me, and it definitely didn't redeem the movie in my mind.
Okay.
Do you have any wow factor in this movie?
And those cinematography moments where he's breaking the fourth wall, that's the only wow factor for me. Um, and I agree, it's not redemptive at all. And a four.
Yeah, I guess the wow factor for me would be, well, you this isn't a spoiler. You know, in the beginning they're broken up. He says it. He says that they're not together. So I think that that it's just a movie that doesn't have a happy ending. They don't get back together. Is like the only real wow factor for me in this movie. And I'd give it a 5. It's just mediocre wow factor wise. I think I know the. I also did want to say this movie. You know what it made me think of? It felt like a depressing When Harry Met Sally.
I don't agree.
It's like a throughout their life, will they, won't they? Are they going to get back together? It doesn't quite work out, but at least in When Harry Met Sally, they're like likable.
Right.
Even though Billy Crystal's character is neurotic
Yeah.
and
No, there's.
weird, you still like him.
Yeah. No, no. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
I don't know. I feel like everybody's going to be like, you just didn't get the movie. It's just too highbrow for you. But I just think it wasn't executed well. I feel like I know the answer to these next two questions, but I have to ask you anyway. Is this a top 100 movie for you?
No, I
it,
I never want to see this movie again.
I'll go so far as to say I
I don't want
never.
to see the cover. I don't want to see the name, I absolutely hated it.
I would go so far as to say I never want to see another Woody Allen movie again. It was so
Give me Mutiny on the
insufferable.
Bounty every day.
This is not a top 100 movie for me, with the caveat that I understand
But is it a
why.
bucket list movie?
I just want to say, with the caveat that I understand why it's rated highly, and I understand that it broke out. I understand that
I
it
get
broke
it.
the mold. I get what it was trying to do,
I
and I
get
get
it,
why
but I
it's
don't like it.
lauded. Exactly. No, this is not a bucket list movie to me. In fact, whatever the opposite of a bucket list movie is,
It's a
I
chuck
think
it.
it belongs
It's
on
a
that
chuck it
list.
list. Yeah. It ranks in probably my top 10 movies that I hate most of all time.
Wow.
I
Okay.
don't know what my number one is. I haven't really thought about it, but it's darn close.
Because Ryan and I both hated this so much, I was really curious how other people felt. And I went to the IMDb comments where you can see where people have rated a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, for this movie, there were tons of 10-star reviews. People love it. The subreddit that is dedicated to like old movies, people were saying how amazing it was. I did find a couple of people who agreed with us, and I'm going to read you. It's a me Luigi's comment. He
It's
says,
me, Luigi.
I trust that modern viewers will see this film for what it is, an exercise in narcissistic self obsession that gives the viewer nothing to appreciate but a glimpse into the world of 70s icon, grossly obsessed with his own self image and self imposed sense of grandeur.
Amen, brother. Well said.
If you enjoy modern day indie circle jerking, then you may appreciate this mind numbing marathon of boredom. This screenplay consists of an endless loop of Allen's intellectual bickering about modern living that has absolutely no pacing or narrative development, never mind its wafer thin intellectual depth and pseudo psychology. Poor acting by both
Yes.
of the only two characters in this film make for a study of how to fail in engaging the audience. Watch this film to learn why the Oscars have no credibility.
Wow. And I thought I was harsh.
I will say that another
They
one of
basically said
the
exactly the same things that we were harping on,
another one of the
just more
reviews just
elegantly.
says excruciating. And to balance it out, I will read you the top 5-star review very quickly.
Okay.
Or 10-star
Yeah.
review.
I actually do want to hear it.
Okay, it says Annie Hall is a movie about life. In recent films, there are fairly predictable endings, i.e., guy gets girl after chase scene in Manhattan. Annie Hall goes against the grain of movies. There is a definite chemistry between Alan and Keaton. That is one of the main reasons this movie is successful. Alvy and Annie do not have high wage jobs. They do not go clubbing, nor are they incredibly attractive. Why does a movie character relationship have to be so extreme it's unconvincing? These days, movie producers create plots that are unbelievable. They don't have any depth and usually have shallow intentions. You can sense that the two leads care for each other. The situations in this movie resemble real life, and that's why it's so critically acclaimed and remembered. Sure, Woody talked into the camera, but that in a sense is real life as well. It reminds me of my usual thought process and how when I think, I feel as though I'm presenting my thoughts to myself. Only he is presenting it to us. The movie is clever and thought provoking. If you're looking for the opposite of a yearly run of the mill movie, this is for you. I get what they're saying.
I agree. I mean, it's not the guy gets the girl at the end of the movie, but I don't care about a bad ending.
Mm-mm.
But there's got to be a beginning, middle, and end, and it was just all straight line all the way across, and that's my major qualm with.
Thank you guys for listening to us rant about Annie Hall. This is a week where we would especially like to hear your thoughts. If you have any strong feelings about Annie Hall, one way or the other, please let us know on our comments on Spotify or on our comments on Instagram. It's Ryan and Kat's List. We'll see you next week for Rain Man, which we're very excited to watch.
Definitely Rain Man. Definitely.
Yes, we're very excited. And we will get into that next week. But for now, I'm Katie.
And I'm Ryan.
And this has been The List. Bye.